Welcome to the Beyond Divorce Embracing Change podcast. My name is Michael Flores, and I will be your host while we explore the complex journey of divorce with empathy, insight, and practical knowledge. Whether you're contemplating separation, in a divorce, or looking for support post-divorce, our episodes provide expert guidance, stories, and strategies to help you through every step of the process. We are actual therapists, helping clients who sit on our couches every day through their difficulties of divorce. You are not alone. Join us as we delve in and find solutions that give you hope again. We're glad you're here.
This podcast is not intended to replace legal or personal help. This podcast is for informational purposes only.
All right, listeners, thank you for joining us today. You are listening to Beyond Divorce Embracing Change podcast. If you don't recognize my voice, I've been on here a little bit as one of the therapists. My name is Arrianna, and I actually have the pleasure of interviewing Mr. Michael Flores today. So, Michael, you wanted to talk about the personal journey of divorce. Now, if I am in a divorce, going through a divorce, help me understand what does that look like, that personal journey of divorce? How did we get here as the topic for today?
Yeah. Well, as I was discussing with, I think I actually discussed it with Jen and Armando recently, was that people behave in patterns, right? And so in all the years, I'm actually at a point now in my career where parents that are bringing their kids in or court ordered to see us, I've actually been practicing longer than their kids have been alive.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, it's starting to make me feel really old. But being able to reflect on what seems to come up most frequently, what's the pattern, what's the consistent thing that I hear about all the time or seems to continue to come up. And so I thought it'd be helpful to our listeners to say, when you're on your personal journey of divorce, I found the three things.
Okay.
And there may be more, but I see three specific items that always seem to be part of a person's personal journey. And it's in their ability or inability to get resolution, whether that be in their co-parenting relationship, in their relationship with their children, a solution with the court. In all those dynamics, there's these three legs that I have found that they stand on.
Okay.
So
and in that journey, these three dynamics, if one were to be able to work through them, or you've seen success, or kind of walk me through that?
Yes. So what I've actually been able to experience therapeutically is when one of these appears and I'm able to verify that that's what it is. Like once we kind of put the thumb on it, usually what will happen is the client will say things that sound like one of these items.
Okay.
And so once I hear it enough times and I go, that keeps falling into the same category, I'll say something like, it sounds like to me there's a lot of this here. And this seems to be the thing that is really inhibiting your ability to be flexible or your ability to have resolutions or whatever it may look like. And once I get that's right, or that confirmation, like that's it, then I get to get really specific about how I ask questions around that so that there's solution building.
Gotcha.
In that particular area. Because it's almost like, I think when people go through divorce, it literally is like they're in a storm and they're getting hit by rain, wind, debris, all of it, right? There's hail, there's tornadoes, there's whatever. And so they just feel like this tsunami of emotions and just, they feel completely overwhelmed and lost. That's probably the best way to describe it.
Okay.
So when I'm having a conversation with them and I let them journey through the whole thing, they tell me about the wind, the hail, the debris, they tell me about all of it. And I'm able to succinctly go, wow, it sounds like this is where most of this is hitting, right? When I'm able to pull it all together and go, this is what it seems like to me, you can just see this, like this, I make it I make it more simple. It's bite size.
Finding that root cause, that root hurt, whatever it is, for them to help alleviate some of that stuff.
And that's right. And I think as a therapist, I'm not trying to find the why. A lot of clients seem to want to know the why. Like after all these years, now I know why. Well, that doesn't change what, okay? It just tells you what's going on. And that's because you've accepted that as the answer. What I have found is I'm not trying to find why. I'm trying to find that pattern that continues to happen that's causing you to continue to stay stuck.
Gotcha. So kind of finding a new way forward.
Yes. Like once we get to, okay, so if you take your car to the mechanic and the mechanic says, hey, I know why your car's not starting, right? Your alternator's out, right? That doesn't fix the alternator. Okay. It just tells you what's going on. Some people just want that. But for most people that want solutions, they just want the car to run. Like when I turn the car on, it pops on. So I'm like the therapist that comes in and says, hey, there's a lot of reasons your car may not start. It could be a starter. It could be faulty wiring. It could be your alternator, right? But based on everything you described to me, that's like almost their complaints that your issues are. Yeah. Your alternator sounds like it's out. So I'm wondering if you think that would be a good place to start. And if they're like, yeah, once they align with you and they go, yeah, you know what, I think it might be the alternator, then I get to go, cool, let's talk about the solutions that relate to alternator.
Okay. So it sounds like getting to be creative and have a different lens of things, getting to see how do we move forward from here.
Yes. It's almost like we used to getting caught in the weeds. When I used to wait tables, we used to say I'm in the weeds, which means I know what I need to do, but I have so much of it to do, I'm stuck. Like I'm behind on my tables. This one needs refills. This one needs their check. This one needs the food. And I still got to drop the bill off here. And this one needs me to make the dessert. So I'm in the weeds. I've got all these things happening at one time. I know I need to do all these things. I just don't know where to start. This is a way. I found these 3 pillars and said, if I just know this is where to start, makes sense. And they align with me and go, yes, it's that. The therapy becomes extremely helpful.
Oh, wow. Well, Michael, I'm excited to jump in this today then and hopefully provide, some clarity and some help to our supporters. So tell me about this first one that I see here, unresolved past.
Yes. So unresolved past typically is what I've learned about divorce is a lot of times when parents get divorced, it's not uncommon to have one person who wants the divorce and one person who does not. I've landed on all of it where both want the divorce. I've landed on where both really don't want the divorce, but they end up getting divorced, right? Because they just both can't see the path forward. But a lot of times it feels like the majority of them, a lot of them fall in that middle ground where one wants the divorce and one does not. Oh. And so there's that unresolved past, and it could be for both of them. It could be for the one who wants the divorce, but because they don't see this future, but there's all this unresolved things that never got resolution. And so they don't believe the resolution will exist. And so they see a life that's better off without them. So they want the divorce. But the person who doesn't want the divorce is now dealing with a current position that is going to be eventually come their past that's not resolved. And so they stay stuck in that cycle. And so what happens with unresolved past is people hold on to what was and they stay in a loop. And they can't find a path forward because what I've learned with unresolved past people is they just want to be seen. They just want the other person to validate you got hurt, or hey, when I had an affair, right? I know we got divorced. Our marriage didn't work. We tried counseling. It wasn't working. And ultimately led us to divorce. And you know what? It was wrong. I shouldn't have. That's what they want. They just want someone to validate and acknowledge. Yeah. That's what the unresolved past person typically is craving. That acknowledgement and validation that, hey, this happened. This was hurtful. This was wrong. Or here's my part in that, whatever it may be. And a lot of times the apology can be really helpful there.
What would you say to those listeners who are, maybe they're there, right? They want that apology, but they either will no way articulate that to their ex.
Oh, no.
Or there is no way in heck that the ex is ever going to even admit fault or apologize, or maybe they don't even see the pain or hurt that they've caused this person. What would you say to them?
So are you asking if they're craving this, but they're never going to tell their ex that's what they need? Or that's what I heard in one version of that. And so you're saying, what would I tell them in that situation?
How do you, for yourself, get that recognition if your ex, the partner that you need to give it, is not going to?
Yeah. So let's say I was doing an individual session with one of the parties, mom or dad, whoever it was, or the divorcee. And I'm just an individual counselor. I don't do any joint work with them. And they came in and said that to me, like, the first thing we would do is validate that unresolved past, that hurt that's still back there, that's not resolved in them yet, is still present. and they crave that acknowledgement from their partner to say, hey, I hurt you, or, this was rough, or, just some way of acknowledging them in the process. And they don't think they'll ever tell them that. They don't think they'll ever get it. What I'll typically say is, what will you have to do, right? Even if you never get that, so that you can find yourself in a new place. What would you have to do?
So kind of putting the power back into your own hands.
Yeah.
To get that for you.
Because the problem in a situation with the unresolved past is what people do is they find themselves in a victim stance and they stay there. And what happens when you stay in the victim stance is everything's happening to you, nothing's happening for you. And so when everything happens to you, you have no control of your life. Think about it. Everything's just happening to you.
Yeah.
And you feel like you just got a bad stroke of luck. When in reality, what if it happened for you? What if that whole past that went unresolved was really just designing something for you to figure out a lot about yourself? Maybe I was developing too much of a codependent relationship, right? And now that that's not there, I'm mad at them for not being there with me, when in reality, that was a me issue the whole time. Make sense?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You see, that's the discovery that people get to make when they really take a deep dive where they're stuck. Like, it's almost like, look at it like, for the unresolved past piece, look at that as more of your car stalling. Like, you're driving your car and your car stalls and your little check engine light comes on. The issue is an issue, yes. But when that check engine light's really just to let you know something's off, something's wrong. Your emotions do that.
An indicator, a moment to pause and look inside and reflect on what it is that you're needing.
Victims want to avoid their own pain by projecting that pain onto the other person.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? And so if they would take the time to not project the pain, but to sit in it and help understand what it may mean about them, that's when they heal. I'm stuck in this unresolved pain because of what they put me through. Right? That's what you're telling yourself. Instead of saying, I'm stuck in this unresolved pain, regardless of what they put me through, I feel it. What does this say about me?
Yeah.
What could this maybe mean for me? And how do I want to heal? How do I want to resolve this within myself? If when they get there and you therapeutically can navigate that with them, it's amazing who they get to become. The unfolding they get to do. To me, our society is probably in more therapy now because we have more people who are victims of their own situations.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask or say as you were talking about that and going from this happened to me to this is how I'm going to move forward. It sounds like this is an opportunity for a lot of autonomy and agency as someone who is struggling with the unresolved past to take the bull by the horns, essentially, and figure out how they want to move forward.
Yeah, I think the old saying is change is the only thing that's constant. It's inevitable. And so if that's true, if everything is subject to change, you're either a victim of change or you're the creator of it.
So what do you want to be, the victim or the creator?
Yeah, who do you want to be? Do you want to be the creator of change? Do you want to build the change of your life? Or do you want to be a victim of circumstance, of the changes that occurred in your life? The truth is that both are always happening at the same time. There are things that are completely out of control that are going to change. Whether you wanted them to or not, they're just going to happen.
Yeah.
And there's other things in life that you get to change because you chose to change them. And you get to have both. And both have something really unique to show you if you're willing to ride the wave. People spend more time avoiding them than really trying to understand them. And so I think that's where I would encourage people that are stuck in their past, that unresolved past, that's my challenge to them. Individual therapy for those people is extremely helpful if the therapist is willing to push on you and the therapist is willing to really take you through the journey and not let you just avoid it and go, I can see you're crying. Let me get you not to cry. No. What do those tears mean? A lot of therapists see the person cry and they'll want to pull them out of it because they want to protect them. They want to protect their client because their client's hurting. No. Process that with them.
Yeah.
You don't have to say, well, what's wrong? Why are you crying? No. What do those tears mean? Help me understand that. Well, I just really miss tell me more about that. What do you miss most about that? Yeah. How did you create that in the first place? right? And how do you want to build on that? Is that something you want to create in the future for yourself? So they start navigating their own, now they all of a sudden, they become the director of their own life again. You know what I mean? Like you said, you empower them to have that autonomy again, and they're no longer stuck in the cycle of victimhood, for the apology they may never get.
Wow. I love how this went from, thinking about all of the hurt and the pain and the things that were happening, in this relationship, in this marriage, and can turn into such a beautiful, powerful opportunity forward.
Absolutely. I mean, some of the greatest people I ever met have the most unique stories of things they went through. And so when I get to hear their story of their success, it's not about how great they were. It's about how hard it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Think about that. When you meet people who are extremely successful and you let them tell you their story of how they arrived, it's not usually, if they're telling you how great they are, that's how they got there, they're lying to you. It's usually there's a path of pain in there. Yeah, that's right. The majority of people that I respect immensely in their success had a lot of struggle behind them. And that's how they became who they became. And so to me, it's almost like you're the victim of your circumstances, or you're the creator of the change. You're one or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you gonna do with that? How do you want to build?
How do you want to build? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, let's go ahead and jump to, we talked a lot about things that we're getting stuck in and how to move forward.
Yeah.
Tell me about this other pattern that you've seen for those in their journey of divorce, this other piece that might be an issue for other listeners.
Yeah, so the other pillar that people seem to get stuck in is the fear of the future. They fear a repeat of something they may have been through before. See, kind of feeds off each other. So if they've had a past hurt that's unresolved, they may fear a future that could have the same outcome. Makes sense? But one of them is leading them. Either the past unresolved is the guiding force, or that fear of the future is the guiding force. One is having more leverage over them. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so the person who's really more afraid of the future, what theirs is they want something that makes them feel secure in making a decision in the future. Makes sense? So I want to know that you're not going to do this time, or I want to know that you're not going to take me back to court if, right? That's that fear of future person.
Yeah.
Right. And so they have all these comments they make, but it's always about this potential problem that's going to happen over here, right, in the future. And the fear of future, the reason that's such an issue, I think, for people is because no one wants to go through our imagination can build a problem better than the actual reality of a problem.
Yeah.
You can imagine a problem better than the actual problem is, if that makes any sense.
Oh, I've definitely seen that in my office, so.
I'd see. It shows up, doesn't it? And you might have seen it more than once.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And so so when you notice that it's happening with different people, but the same thing, then you go, there's something to this. There's a pattern. That's really, over all the years I've done this, I've learned that. And so I just labeled it as fear of future. And so what happens is people become victims of their own imagination.
Mm.
And what I used to do with fear of future people is I would tell them whatever the other person's up to, they're not going to wait till you give them permission to do it anyway.
Yeah.
If they're up to no good, right, and you're trying to prevent them from doing no good, you're not going to win that one. If their goal is to be up to no good, they're going to do it anyway. Does it make sense? So you're constantly responding to this idea of what could happen and not always what will happen. Yes?
Yeah. So how do you get unstuck from that? How do you shut your imagination off, or the story?
Well, you don't.
On yourself?
You're not going to shut your imagination off. You're going to use an old quote that says, "Que sera, sera." Remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that Latin?
I don't know.
I think it's Latin. Que sera, sera. And it means what will be, will be. And it's the idea that what's going to happen is going to happen, whether you want it to or not. Right? And it's not the idea that the future is already written. What it means is that if you trust more on how you're going to respond regardless of what happens, it's the old saying, like when a bird lands on and I forget where I heard this, but I think it was somebody said that Denzel Washington made this quote, and I thought it was pretty good, but it said something like, when a bird lands on a branch, does it trust the branch or its wings?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have heard that.
Yeah, and so the idea is when you trust enough of yourself and how you're going to respond, then there's no fear of future. I'll give an example of a true case. So I had a parent who was a mom, got divorced from dad. They had a pretty rocky marriage. Dad was kind of verbally overly aggressive. I don't like to use the word abusive because I think there's a lot of layers to that, but I would definitely say that he was verbally aggressive based on the story that mom had told me. And so when mom had left the marriage and the child, their daughter, was still seeing dad per court order, daughter would report things to mom about what her experiences with her dad, and it was just a reminder to mom of what she used to experience in her marriage. So it's almost like my kid is getting the brunt of what I used to get in my marriage. Make sense? And so this mom had all this fear and anxiety over sending the kid because there's like, now I can't protect my kid because I'm not in that home anymore.
Yeah.
But my kid's is getting what I used to get, And so there's this fear that overcomes them. And so I remember asking this mom this question. I said, so I'm doing work with dad and kiddo, and that may get better, it may not. So what I asked the moms, I said, regardless of the outcome, whether it gets better or not, where do you plan to be for this child?
So putting it back on mom.
Yeah, I asked mom, what's her plan on where she's going to be for this kid? And mom looked kind of confused by my question, but her ultimate response was, I'm always going to be here for my kid.
Yeah.
I said, so if it goes really well, you're still going to be part of your child's life. Oh, absolutely. But if it doesn't go well, are you still going to be there for your child? Yes. Then what are you afraid of? Did you have someone for you the way your child has you when you were in your marriage?
Probably not.
She didn't. But your child has you, and you're the consistent piece. So what are you afraid of? Well, I just don't want my child to go through it. I don't either. That's why they're here.
Yeah.
But in the event they do go through it, you're that consistent, solid piece. So what is there to lose? They've got you.
Wow.
And that was to remove this imaginary, I can't protect them when their dad is being verbal with them. No, I can't either. I can have conversations about it. I can bring it up in sessions. I can dive into it. I can talk about how it's not helpful and do a lot of things. It doesn't mean that they're going to change when they leave. But what I do know is if you're going to be that constant thing, you're always going to be there for your kid. You're going to be constant. You're going to be that, that grounded force, that foundation. Then what's the problem?
I'm sensing a pattern here, Michael.
What's that?
And the patterns of the patterns that we're noticing, right? It sounds like it falls back on yourself.
Always. It's what you have control of, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it falls back on self. I mean, all three of these pillars are about self, right? Fear of future, unresolved past. That's a self thing.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where people get stuck. This is where, when you're stuck in your past because of I've not been acknowledged and I've been validated and I got hurt and I'm not done with that hurt, how can you solve a problem in the future or even in the current if the past isn't acknowledged? Like I'm still in chapter 1, you're in chapter 5.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so this is why there's that dissonance between those co-parents or even in their ability to solve problems in the courts, and they don't realize that they're just, the unresolved past person doesn't realize that they're creating a present that looks just like the past because they keep living the past in the present. And so it just, it's a self-fulfilling. Exactly. And it's like a confirmation bias and all those other things that we talk about all the time. And so for the fear of future people is they're so angst about the fear of the future, they become super defensive and protective. Mm-hmm. They become overly protective and they're typically seen as alienators. Makes sense? Because they're so big on wanting to prevent a problem that could occur that may never occur. Or if it did occur, I'm afraid I can't control it or fix it. And so they focus more on prevention, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they get stuck there. And the other person, as a response to the fear of future person, becomes extremely defensive and aggressive because they feel prevented from progressing, right? You're preventing me from a relationship with my kid. You're preventing me from being a part of my child's life. And so they will call him an alienator, or they'll call him, they're coaching them, and so then the parent comes in there and defends them. So, oh my gosh, I'm not doing that. And they call me, but I'm not. And I'm, well, are you protecting your kid? Of course I'm protecting my kid. From what? Well, I don't want them to be in an environment where I can't. I get it. But that protection looks like alienation to them.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Wow. I love how everything is just, as you're talking about this and you're sharing examples, it feels like everything is so interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
It is such a system.
It's a system. That's right.
All right. Well, this has been really great stuff. I want to get into that last one really quickly. What is this last pillar patterns that you've seen with people going through this
Correct.
divorce?
Yeah. So if you notice, they all kind of link together. And the last one is lack of trust. It's the inability to trust. I don't trust you. I don't trust the process. I don't trust. And what I've learned with co-parents, that's if I put every single co-parent that I've ever worked with in more than a decade of time that I've done this, I've done it more than 10 years. Isn't that crazy? Like I'm getting close. I think I'm at 13, maybe almost 14 years of doing this. But in all the years I've done this, what I have found is that little hole that exists between the parents' ability to work together is always based in trust and the inability to trust each other, and usually falls back on one of the other two, whether it's the fear of the future or whether it's a unresolved past. It seems to be that the lack of trust is where they end up.
Oh, wow.
It's like their landing spot. Makes sense. So maybe there's not an unresolved past. Maybe I'm not really dealing with my past being unresolved. Maybe I'm not really fearful of the future. I just don't trust you. I don't like you. It could be that too. And so when you don't trust someone, how do you build a solution with them? How can you collaborate with someone you don't trust? You know what I mean? So then the question is, how do I trust someone I don't trust? Well, then the first thing is that people always say is you have to earn. You ever heard that one? You have to earn my trust?
Yeah.
How does that work? You know what's really funny about trust? So I'll ask someone, I'll say, tell me someone you trust. And I say, well, my best friend. I say, how'd they earn your trust? And they struggle a little bit with that. And they'll go, oh, well, they've always done this, or they've always done, it's always an always or never, right? And I say, actually, let me tell you how they earned your trust. You gave it to them.
Yeah.
Usually when we are in a relationship with someone, even if you're just dating someone, they don't earn it. You really just give it to them. And then by how they behave and interact with you, you believe in them over time. And that's where trust is built. Trust actually starts with a gift.
Wow.
So I'll tell you a cool story with a juvenile I had. Working with this kid, his juvenile kid, and I was working with, I think could have been mom or grandma. I forgot who was raising him at the time. I think it might have been his grandma. I don't recall. But anyway, so I'm in the house doing a home visit, and this is more than 13 years ago. This is the way back. And I'm in the house, and I'm working with her, and they've had like 2 other counselors. Kid's been in and out of jail, juvenile, multiple times. So this is not like his first rodeo. And so the grandma in this case says, he wants to go hang out with his friends and, go out and stuff. And as much as I want him to be able to do that, I don't trust that he'll follow the law. He's going to get arrested again.
Yeah. And
so she asked me, how am I supposed to trust him if historically he always gets in trouble? You're a third counselor, what she said. And I remember that was a good question. And I looked at her and I said, you can't. And for the first time, she felt seen, like someone gets it. And she goes, exactly. That's what I've been trying to explain. I said, well, let me ask you this. Do you want to trust him? Well, you can't, but do you want to?
Yeah. And
she said, yes, I do. I want to trust him. And I said, what would it take for you to be able to trust him? And everything she said was behavioral. Well, he would come back at curfew, like his time.
Okay.
He would go to school. I wouldn't have to wake him up. He would get up himself, get himself to school. He was like, I think 15 at the time. Long story short, she just gave all these little behavioral changes that he would do that would show her he could be trusted. And I said, so what would you have to do so that he had the opportunity to show you that?
What would you have to do?
And she said, I have to be willing to let him fail.
Yeah.
Basically, I have to give it to him. I have to give him rope. I have to give him the ability to show me he can be trusted.
Yeah. That opportunity.
Which may mean he may not be. He may fail again. Like she realized, I'm also holding him back because she wasn't letting him go out. She wasn't letting him do any of those things.
Okay.
Makes sense. So she had to let him go to school, and he did, but she would have to wake him up, and she would complain about it, but she wouldn't let him go out with his friends because she's like, he didn't come back to curfew. That's why he got arrested last time. He was out past curfew. Cops got curious, checked him, and he had marijuana on him. You know what I mean? So the point that she came to the conclusion is, I'm going to have to give him the opportunity to fail.
To give the trust.
Yeah. So if you want to build trust with someone, you have to give them a chance to fail you also. So you have to look at your co-parent and go, I don't trust you, but if we're going to build a co-parenting relationship on trust, I have to give you room to be trusted, which means you could fail me and I could fail you.
Yeah.
So what are we willing to do in this, or even not willing to do, so that we don't break the trust going forward? And there's your dialogue in your joint session with the co-parents when it's a lack of trust, which I will tell you is 99.9% of all of them.
I can count on more hands than I have the amount of times the word trust has come up as a roadblock.
Yeah, and those are the three pillars. I mean, unresolved past and hurt. I'm either stuck there, I'm stuck in fear of future, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm stuck in the ability to trust my other parent, my co-parent, or even my kid. And it's always one of those three. And so to me is, once I can figure out where yours is, like where the majority of it is, because sometimes it's all three. Somebody might tell me, well, what if I've been hurt in the past, and that's why I'm afraid of the future, and I don't trust them. Like, what if it's all three?
Yeah.
Well, it could be, but one of them is guiding you most. One of them has the biggest hold on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people don't realize that one of them is, all three probably do exist in most, but if they really take a chance to understand themselves, they'll realize that one of them has the deepest hold on them, has the claws in.
So it sounds like the first step is that introspection.
It's always introspection. Where is this in me first? As a therapist, when I've had cases where I haven't made a lot of progress, I don't look at the client first.
Yeah.
I look at me. I look at me first.
How are we failing?
Yeah. I mean, Arrianna, haven't you and I had conversations on how can we do it better?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I value most about you as a therapist is, you've sat in my office before and said, Michael, I'm moving with this family, but I'm not sure where I go here. And I love it. I'm like, that's exactly what a great therapist does. And I still do it too. I just don't come to y'all with it usually. And I probably should, but I have my people I talk to too.
Yeah.
And we should all do that. The saying we used to have where I graduated from was a professional cuddle group, which is where you have your other professionals in the field that work with you, where you get to talk about,
mm-hmm.
Either your struggles or what's going on. But to me, those conversations weren't to go complain about my client.
Yeah.
It was to come and say, this is where I am with this client, so that I could get insight on where I could be better for my client.
Yeah. And I think that's applicable everywhere in life. How can I do better? How can I be better? How can I
mm-hmm.
keep growing and evolving into, a better version of what I want to be? Who I want to be as a parent,
yep.
as a co-parent, as a partner.
We just had a conversation with parents the other day, you and I, where we talked about having a conversation with their kids about where they're getting it wrong.
Yeah.
Have you ever asked your kids what you're doing that your kids see you doing a good job as co-parents? Have you ever asked your kids, how are we doing a good job for you? How are we showing up for you? No, I've never asked our kids that. Okay. So I'm assuming that you've probably never asked your kids, how can I do it better?
I think there's a fear with that. I think
the parents have a fear?
I think
100%. Yeah. Fear of what?
Of hearing the bad, which if you don't hear the bad, you don't know the bad. How can you change?
People fear change, I guess. But the truth is, if they really want to come sit in my office and tell me they want to be the best version of a co-parent that they can be, then you have to be willing to accept that you're probably not that yet.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you. I have 3 children, and all 3 of my kids, I really believe deep down in my soul that I'm a wonderful father to them. But is it possible that one of my kids or all 3 of my kids grew up and say I was a horrible father? Is that still a possibility? Even though deep down in myself, I think I'm doing a great job. Yeah. And the truth is, my intent is not to get wrong, but I could. Even as a therapist, my intent is always to be helpful, but it doesn't mean I've always been helpful.
Yeah. That's why we rely so much on feedback.
100%. What was helpful today?
Yep.
What did I miss? How many times have you heard me ask people that?
Mm-hmm.
And what have I missed? What did I miss today on this podcast? What could I have done? Of course, because I'm not going to get it all. I'm not going to hit everything.
You don't know what you don't know. So
I don't know what I don't know. And I only know what I think I know. Yeah. So there was this really cool thing I'll tell you real quick. I drew 3 circles. I don't have a visual, so I'll just have to have a client. I'm trying to explain it well enough for people to image this. You draw one circle, it's small. Then you draw a bigger circle around that circle. And then you draw a bigger circle around that. So there's 3 circles. And it said, this represents truth. So what you see is you see 3 circles.
Okay.
Then you tilt it on its side. And you see the smaller circle on the bottom,
Okay.
the bigger circle above it, right? But in a more wrapped form. And then the bigger circle around that. So now you see it as like a 3D image.
Okay.
Okay. This is truth. And then they draw it again. But then they tilt it the other way. So now it's going, one's horizontal. Now one's is it not parallel?
The vertical.
Like vertical and horizontal. Yeah. So one's vertical, one's horizontal. When they draw it, the loops go the opposite direction. Same thing though. Smaller circle, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. This is also truth. It's all the same. And then they go, but it's based on perspective.
Yeah.
So then what we learn, so truth is a part of perspective, right? But do you want to know what really goes deeper than just perspective?
Tell us, Michael.
Perspective is one aspect of truth, right? To truly understand someone, it's not just perspective, right? It's not the perception. It's, I'm trying to think of how the word is used. It's not observation, because observation is all interpretation. It is, I can't think of the word now, Arrianna. I'm so sorry.
Leaving us hanging.
I know. I gotta think of the word. I bet you one of our listeners probably heard me say it before and goes, I know the word he's needing. It's not perspective. It's, I can't think of it. Anyway, what it really basically is, and it all starts with a P, but basically what it is the ability to see it from their point of view. Perspective is your point of view, right? And then observation is also your point of view. But the ability to see it from their point of view,
Okay.
that's where truth is. Truth is my perspective and then flipping it and seeing it from theirs.
Being able to see all sides and acknowledging that as truth.
Correct. What's the word though? It starts with a P, not perspective. I can't think.
It's gonna hit you as soon as
I know we're gonna be done, and I'm gonna be like, yeah, here's the word. Maybe if I can figure it out, I'll put it in the show notes or something, right? Well, we'll give extra work to Stephanie for the show notes, but I'll think of the word and put it out there. But anyway, because once you hear the word, you'll be like, oh yeah, it makes sense. But basically, the point of it is being able to see it from the other person's point of view as well as your own. Now you have truth. When you can do that, you're sitting in probably a more state of truth, is what I've learned. That's what the whole point of the circles was.
Okay.
So this lack of trust, right? If you want to build on trust, you have to be willing to do both sides of that. My perspective and your perspective.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I think just to tie a nice little bow on all of that, I think it starts with yourself.
All starts with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I think what I want to leave the listeners with on this three is I'll hit the 3 pillars again. The 3 pillars of your personal journey of divorce are unresolved past hurt, a fear of future, and a lack of trust. And if you're willing to take a deeper dive in yourself, self-reflect on which one of these 3 is holding me hostage, right, the most, and you're willing to do the work in that particular area, that's how you will create movement into solutions. And what we've learned, and I think I did a whole podcast on this, is about the data that says, I think I did with Jen, that says when a person has an intense feeling, right, and they don't feel like someone understands how they feel, like you really don't validate how someone really senses something, they can't move into solutions. Make sense? So the unresolved hurt person, if it's not at least acknowledged or seen, you don't have to agree with them. But if you don't acknowledge it or see it, they will not move into solution world with you. Make sense?
Yeah.
And think about our clients that we get that have never met us, but they want to have, they demand a meeting with us to go over their history.
Yeah.
I just got to tell you what's happened. I need you to know all this stuff. You might not need it, but they need it. They need you to have it.
Yep.
And then once they give it to you and you go, this seems like it's been blah, blah, blah. Guess what they do with you after that? They now move. They move with you. That's right. And I will tell people, when people are unwilling to move, it's because one of these three things are present. If you have lack of movement in your divorce, in your resolution with court, in your resolution as co-parents, it's one of these three things are present. For you, it could be for your future. For them, it could be unresolved. But once y'all acknowledge what those are in each other, and then you work through them, you guys are off to the races. It's awesome. To me, that's where resolution happens. So I hope that helps. Hope that helps the listeners. That was a big nugget.
It really was, Michael. But I think you had a lot of good points, and I think it was an opportunity for our listeners to have a moment of introspection and look at for them on their journey of divorce. Where are we falling along here? What are some of the things that we can do to keep moving forward in this?
There it is. That's exactly what we need to do.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for interviewing me, Arrianna. Thanks for allowing me to go over this. And thank you to the listeners. And we ask that you keep moving forward.